News of the week is the first draft of history each week. Your job is to be fast and first and good and right. That's all we ask.
It's like you guys are fighting over the lower bunk bed in jail. Who gets to make the guys who are writing the story look better?
I used to hide my eyes in the shadows, stay blind to the light of day.
I don't want to just watch the news. I want to feel a part of it.
I'm a career girl! Woo!
Young lady, could you get me a cup of coffee?
Absolutely. Black, 2 sugars?
Yes.
There's great changes sweeping this country, and it is so important that you're a part of it.
Nora, friend.
Hi. Okay, you're not married yet, are you?
Don't worry about me. I'm living my dream too, just like you are. I can't give up on this story yet.
But you're not a reporter. You're a researcher. And we had a date.
I awake until this day. I'm going out to make a change.
I hope our kids look like you.
Well, before we have kids, we have to have a marriage.
I'm going
What the hell is this? This piece hit the bullseye.
That was me.
Girls do not do rereads.
Why not?
We have rules, protocol.
This is ridiculous. I quit.
Senior editors, all men.
That's not fair.
You're never gonna get your name on this page. You good with that?
Congratulations on the show, you guys. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
It's
Excellent.
wonderful.
Thank you.
All of you make
I
it such
agree.
a wonderful cast. You agree.
It's such a good show.
And there it is, guys. There we have it. Talk about how all of this started for you. How much did you know about the actual story going into it? Because all of you are characters sort of inspired or based on real people.
I'll start. I'd read the book. I happened to, this is purely by accident, I happened to know Lynn Povich, who wrote the book that the show is based on. Her daughter went to the same college that I went to, and through her, I had met Lynn Povich and Judy Gingold and some of the women who were involved in the original suit. And so that actually made getting the audition for this show terrifying because I wanted it so badly. I wanted this so badly.
Well, you got it, girl.
Well, you got it, girl. And then I got it.
Anna, what about you?
I didn't really know that much about the lawsuit. I knew that it had happened, but after reading the script and then getting the part, I picked up the book and found it so infuriating and passionate, and knew that I wanted to be a part of a story that is still very relevant and timely today. And unfortunately, in the state of the election that we're in right now, Trump has made our show incredibly more relevant than we even imagined. So yeah, the book is fantastic, and Lynn Povich is a great writer.
And I'm glad you went there. I'm glad you went there right away. I don't want to spend this entire time talking about Donald Trump, but we have
but you
women
can't
on
not.
stage
You can't
promoting
not.
a show called Good Girls Revolt, and we had a presidential candidate last night called the female candidate. The first,
A nasty woman.
the first major female candidate of a party.
And she was just like, she was just calling him out on policy. She stood up to him on policy, and he called her a nasty woman. This nasty woman is voting.
I have to say, as horrible as it was, as a feminist,
It was bigly horrible.
Bigly horrible.
Bigly horrible.
Wasn't it also kind of almost purifying to watch patriarchy played out so
Yes,
clearly
that is
and on a national stage?
exactly
It was
how
like,
I
yes,
feel.
that's patriarchy. She's taking it down.
When
Thank
this
you.
stuff comes up, it makes me angry and it makes me a little excited because I'm like, yup, come forward, say what you really think. Because if you're going to be thinking about it, say it out loud so we can talk about it.
No longer is it coded sexist rhetoric. It's just sexist rhetoric.
It's not coded sexist or racist rhetoric. I mean,
No.
he's just revealing what's always been there, and he's putting it out for everyone to see. So
Correct. It's amazing how much the landscape
Joy,
has
thank you.
changed since we started shooting the pilot, which was over a year ago, when it was sort of like this election about possibly maybe having a female candidate for president, to an election about stopping someone who is such a bigot. It's really unbelievable how the stakes.
Well, and it is like for me, like coming out of the show and having lived in the skin of these women and this environment for 4 months, I stepped out and I started listening to Trump, and I was just like, oh. He's a 1969 misogynist. Like, if he could go back in time, he'd be perfectly happy to.
He'd be running the newsroom in Good Girls Revolt.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like if he watched our show, he would be looking at some of the male characters like, I don't understand what's wrong with them.
We're actually actively trying to get Melania a burner phone right now, so if anyone has any connections.
So, Chris, Hunter, what is it like repping the patriarchy, bros?
So here's the deal. You know, the truth of the matter is, look, we play men in 1969. That doesn't instantly mean that we're villains or dicks. You know. Now, the truth of the matter is that these guys were A, doing their job, and B, behaving in a way that was societally condoned. Basically, you know, the country over. It wouldn't have occurred to an editor-at-large or a reporter in 1969 that the way that they were used to behaving, the way that they'd been brought up to behave, was anything other than the way that they should behave. Now, what's particularly gratifying, I think, about the way that Dana Calvo, who wrote the show, draws these male figures, is that she hasn't drawn them as a black and white, you know, these guys represent the patriarchate and they're, therefore they're evil. She's given them very sympathetic qualities. She's also given them humanistic challenges within their own lives that make them watchable, and that make, I think, that gives the audience an opportunity to look at them and say, okay, I recognize what the women are fighting against, but it's more opaque. You know, it's not like the women hate these men. The women actually love these men. They work with them. They're their colleagues. They're their lovers. But the women have a higher cause. So.
And the men, specifically your characters, don't hate these women. They're just confused by them. They're confused by.
They're intrigued by them as well, and they're aroused by them. And certainly my character, who's straddling generations, on the one hand, he has to please his shareholders, who are all of the old guard, and on the other hand, he recognizes that change is afoot, and he's excited by the notion that these women present real new opportunity, but he's bewildered as to how he can integrate that into a life that has only gone down one path.
Right. I mean, I think for 1969, these are actually like some fairly woke bros. Like, I think that that's sort of part of what makes interesting television, is that it wouldn't be interesting if we were just watching good girls and villainous guys. It's much more interesting when it's in this murky gray area and characters have been created and performed that are really worthy of these women falling in love with, at the same time as there is societal endemic discrimination that they are a part of on a spectrum, really, and that, like, it's also for the viewer. It's for the viewer to give men shades. It's for the viewer to give them men that they want to watch falling in love with these women and working with these women. So
well, and that's the challenge, right? Creating the sort of opposition of sorts, if that's what you call us in your lawsuit, for sure. But creating them to be likable. If we want viewers, and particularly young men viewers, to understand this journey, the female journey, whether it's in the 60s or whether it's today, we have to give them characters, male characters, that they can go like, I kind of relate to that, and I kind of think that's weird too, but I also then, I have to get caught up enough in that to be challenged by it and go, oh, okay, well, if that character is feeling that, I feel like I could see myself feeling that as well, and ultimately having the impact of understanding this female journey.
And it's great because I think, hopefully we'll get more seasons, and I think you'll really get to see these male characters, the men and the women learn about this together. Like, these women are still learning how to have confidence in themselves and to fight for equality. And I think, as the show goes on, it's a process they're learning together. Like, this was stuff that was so ingrained in the way both sexes were brought up.
Generations.
Yeah, generations. Like, this was not just a women's revolution, it was a revolution in the entire way society thought.
What's great also about the show, and again, one of the reasons that I think the show is so successful, is that it uses this revolution, and it uses the era, and it uses the newsroom as a backdrop. And what it really focuses on is these intricate and layered relationships between these characters that have been so beautifully drawn. It's really a character piece. It happens to take place at this vibrant time where everything is exploding, which makes it fascinating because given that it takes place in a newsroom, we can comment on what's being commented on, you know? But it's really about these characters. And I know you mentioned that you watched the pilot, which we're all really proud of, but I can say quite confidently that the show really just gets better and better as you go on. And one of the reasons it gets better and better is because the characters develop in a way, like any great show, that right when you think you know who the archetype is, it flips. They flip it on its head.
I also feel like I should say that Chris and Genevieve are the only ones who have watched the whole season yet. So if the rest of us don't seem like we're agreeing, it's just because we haven't seen it. We're not like, no, I don't think so.
Joe, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that for me, one of the big themes of the show is how we can be complicit in our own oppression, or we can be complicit in the oppression of others, whether intentionally or unintentionally. I mean, again, when I said like shades of patriarchy, you have all these different types of men who have benefited from their privilege, but you have one that's really sensitive, sympathetic, one who's trying to figure it out, someone who is remaining a knuckle dragger. You have women who are discovering their power and their voice. And again, it's like unintentionally or intentionally. We just have to. We've all been conditioned and programmed from way back when to hate ourselves and to hate another. And I think it's part of our awakening
to create hierarchies. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I just think that's so important what you just said, because I think often like one of the greatest antagonists on the show isn't in the men, it's in self-doubt. It's in it's in low self-esteem.
I thought you were gonna say it's me.
It's me.
I'm a great antagonist.
Scooby-Doo moment.
You know, like for me, part of what was so beautiful about the journey of these women on the show was them, sort of finding a community. I think a lot of this stuff was just not talked about. Consciousness-raising meetings and stuff like that were this huge thing for women, where they suddenly were sitting down across from other women, being like, "Wait, you feel the same way? I'm not a crazy person." And I think that sense of community, like that has become part of what my definition of feminism now is, a sense of community fighting for equality. And I think that's something that I just found so beautiful and moving about this show.
And think about it, they were the pioneers. I mean, they were the brave souls that risked their lives, their careers, their social standing, and they made this leap that now allows us to be in a position where almost 50 years later, we're better, but we're nowhere near where we should be.
Right. I mean, we had a consciousness-raising meeting yesterday, kind of, where
we did. Our press tour turned into like a, wait, that happened to you too?
It happened to me.
Yeah.
Wait, tell this story, please.
Well, we had like a moment. We were doing press yesterday, and we had a moment where we were all talking, and I think at one point, Anna said, like, when I was first starting in this.
Yeah, the first time I met with a manager in New York, she told me I needed to lose 10 pounds or I wasn't going to be able to work.
And
I
had
you said that.
I had two casting directors tell me that I needed to lose 25 to 30 pounds if I wanted to work.
Totally.
I was told it was a condition of my signing with them, and
but we just discovered yesterday that like
I had an agent tell me to twirl, stand in the middle of the room and twirl,
and
I did a paddle turn. I literally.
I'm laughing because the
you
first
got the
time
job.
I met a manager, he was like, "You look somewhere between 28 and 40. We can work with that and get you gigs. Don't worry about it." Yeah. No one told me anything. That's pure sexism.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Are you okay?
No, I'm fine. I mean, it was like a nice meeting. It was like no one told me.
Here's where I think this is relevant, though. So, for instance, the three of us have all had this conversation with someone in the industry at some point who said, "You can work if you lose weight." Just for example, bringing it back to the show, I think that inherent self-doubt. I participated in that, and I perpetrated that by saying, "Okay, you're right." And of course, at that moment, didn't know any better. I was a part of an oppressed group. And yet I feel like the way that I can kind of keep my side of the street on the right side of history at this point is to say, I am not, as best as I can, looking for the precedent for something to do what I know is right and good. I'm just going to do what I know is right and good. And that's sort of my work today as a feminist.
I think it's so good that the show is about the community of these women as well, and you brought up community because so often after women not just won the right to work, but like we're actually working prevalently in the workplace, the narrative became about women against women in the workplace. And the only way for a woman to get ahead was to sort of combat against another one and step on another woman, where now we're seeing that change.
I feel like that was an intentional thing. I feel like people who are uncomfortable with the change, it was a very easy way to make it not about them. You know, if you have an enemy, if you pit your enemy against each other.
Well, enemies.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, I don't think that was ever an accident. And in this time when you have these change and these women just starting to figure it out, I feel like they're very impressionable in some ways too. So if you say to this woman who just found out that maybe she has this opportunity, like, you maybe have this opportunity, but that woman is your competition, one of you is gonna get it, of course that starts pitting them against each other. Because it's not like these lawsuits went through and then suddenly there were lots of jobs. These lawsuits went through and then slowly a few women started being hiring and more and more and more. So it was competitive, and they still didn't make the women feel like they were competing with men for those jobs. They only made them feel like they were competing against other women.
It's this idea of scarcity, right? And I think that that's still something that's incredibly common is there's not enough for me, and if you get some, then I have even less. And I think that what we have kind of come to reveal in this show and what we are all realizing together in this life is that, in fact, we can do together what we can't do alone. And that, in fact, the more we collaborate, the more opportunity there is. It's the opposite of what you might think.
Absolutely. The show, a lot of you play real characters. Joy, you play a character who's like a leader of civil rights movement at the time and is now a congresswoman. Yeah. Did you meet with her beforehand? Did you talk to her?
I met with her with Eleanor Holmes. Yeah,
they're best friends.
They're like hanging out all the time now.
Yeah, we're hanging out tonight. We're doing Colbert together.
They're
we're
dating.
Doing Morning Joe together. We're like having dinner together. Eleanor Holmes Norton. I mean, I got to meet her 2 days before I filmed my scene for the pilot, which was last year. We were filming here in New York, and I went down to DC. I had an hour with her. I was so nervous, so terrified. I was like, "Does want her to like me?" And I came with all my notes and everything, and she opened the door, and she was like, "I'm you, you're me." We hugged, and then we love at first sight. But I, just like Genevieve, I read the book. Well, now it's 4 years ago, so 3 years before the show ever came to be, and I knew who Eleanor was, but I didn't know about the story, and I obviously didn't know that she was involved in it. And when I read it, I was just like, holy shit, somebody's got to do this. And when they do, I'm definitely playing Eleanor Holmes Norton. I don't give a fuck. I'm playing her. And so it ended up, yeah, it worked out. But yeah, she's the first person that I mean, I've never played anyone who's lived, you know, who's real. So there was a tremendous amount of responsibility that I felt towards her. I just don't want her to think I sucked, you know? I just don't want her to
You don't suck. You don't suck.
I want her to be happy and proud.
Well,
but,
didn't she, like, after she saw
watch it with her, you know, and watch her like,
Wasn't, like, after she saw the pilot, didn't she, like, call you and was like her only note was like,
the belly was too big.
Yeah, the pregnant belly was too big.
I wasn't that pregnant. Tone it down. But, yeah.
What about the rest of you and the responsibility of playing characters based on real life? Did you feel that going into it? Did you want to do...
Well, we're fictionalizations. So, I mean, I think, you know, what we're responsible for is the spirit of who these people were and what they did. You know, I think it's good both for us as a show because it gives us more dramatic license to explore, and also these women can hopefully watch the show and not be like, I fucked up my life.
We're all representing different types of women too. You know, I'm representing. I'm happy with the status quo as it is at the start of the season. You know, and it takes a lot for me to finally come to the other side. So Jane is a woman of the 50s. You know, she grew up wanting to. She's great at her job and she loves going to work, but she knows that at the end of the day she's not going to be there for forever, and she's going to get married and she's going to have a family. And then when things blow up in her face and it turns out not to go that way, that's when she really starts to discover who she is and listen and communicate with these women and their ideas.
I think it's also important to remember that when there's something that's based on a book, the book doesn't just get photocopied and then we put it on screen. This is a beautiful artistic creation by a writer named Dana Calvo. Dana wrote Doug, Cindy, Jane. These are characters that are the creation of an incredible television writer and former journalist. And so For me, the responsibility was, yes, I want to be believable as someone who had the dignity, strength, and courage to launch this lawsuit, but I also want to honor Dana. So,
Chris, you're coming from playing a Silicon Valley bro in Silicon Valley. What was it like jumping into this show? Did you feel like you were sort of correcting your path a little bit?
You know, playing a reprehensible human being with not a single redemptive quality is so goddamn freeing. I have to say, I was drawn to this script immediately when I read it. Genevieve said it best. Dana penned this amazing script. I love the character. I love the complexity. I love the notion that on paper he's your prototypical 1969 editor-at-large, but the reality is he wants to change, and he's got this inner turmoil. And you know, as he pushes toward change in one realm of his life, the other realms of his life start to crumble, and he just can't keep up with what sacrifice he has to make and how that's going to sacrifice other elements. The character's based on a real editor-at-large of Newsweek, a guy named Osborne Elliott, who was the youngest editor-at-large ever to run Newsweek at a time when the editors were, you know, in their late 50s and 60s. He was 36 years old when he took over. So I had a lot of, you know, research material. But I think playing Finn will assuage my sins for having played Russ. But Russ would probably like Finn. Yeah.
I love Finn.
Yeah.
Finn is so dreamy.
Let's open it up to the audience for some questions. Who has questions out there?
Hey all, good morning.
Good morning.
I can't wait to see the show. It really speaks to me. So my question...
October 28th.
Nice.
It's going to speak to that shirt, too.
Right? Oh, yeah. Totally. Karaoke later. Amazon is putting out a lot of exciting and incredible content lately. They've really been stepping it up. So this question's open to all of you. What is it like working with that platform?
I mean, I've really enjoyed it from the get-go, and having worked on cable and network TV, this experience has been really seamless, and I think that what I've gotten from it is that Amazon is very serious about not only competing with the big boys, but being right up on top there with them. I mean, for me, it was the way that I want to be approached and hired as an actor. I felt respected with regard to my opinion about, you know, not only the lines that I'm saying, but what I bring to the table beyond that. It's been great, actually.
I also will just say, like, I really enjoyed working in the format partially because I love binging. I love binge watching. I will stay up until 6 a.m. if there's
Who here likes binge watching?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
And there was something really exciting to me about making a show already knowing that that was the intention for it. You know, we knew that people weren't going to have to wait a week between episodes. So in some ways, you know, you don't have to feel like you have to put a little bow on at the end of every episode. It can be a full story, a full arc across the season. Which I found like really artistically satisfying.
It's like a really long movie that you can get up and take breaks and go pee and make popcorn at your house.
Yeah,
for sure. I think also, you know, for actors, like unless you're at a certain level of your career, so much of your work is just a matter of saying yes to what's given to you. You know, you go out for everything and you need to make money. And so once you get a job, you take it, you know, like that is the story for a lot of people's careers. And so to be in a situation where I'm given a job at Amazon and it's this job, I am to this day, a year later, still constantly shocked by how good it is. Because, you know, I might have said yes to something not as good. Like this just happens to be incredible. It's really the closest thing to theater, I think, for an actor is being on a cable television show or maybe a movie. But this one's like a movie, yeah.
It speaks to the kind of luck of decision sometimes for an actor because you said like something could have come through just before you got this. And
for me, something did, and then it kind of almost worked out and it didn't work. And I was like,
we gotcha.
Yeah, me too. I was on another show, and the show just got...
Okay, you guys have lots of jobs. We all you work all the time.
You're very successful, Chris. We got.
Thank you.
I was so available.
Let's take another question. Who's got a question out there?
Hi, thanks so much for being here, everyone. You guys are such a great cast of actors, and I was wondering if there was any other roles or projects that kind of prepared you for this project, whether from an acting standpoint or a character standpoint.
I've done so much period work. I don't know what about my face makes people think I am not supposed to be alive now. But like I have done a lot of like 50s and 60s, and I will say that it was really nice going into this, where like when I put on the girdle for the first time, I was like, oh yeah, I know how this feels. But just that, no, yeah, horrible. But just like I think some of the other stuff I've done, like I did this movie Love and Mercy, which was largely set in the 60s as well, and I think just having like a familiarity and a comfort in that time period, it was really helpful for me. I've never played another character like Cindy, though. I don't know where she came from, but I love her.
I was going to say that I have been fortunate to be in the Pitch Perfect movies. Yeah, you might have heard of them. And it's about a group of women, though, coming together and overcoming their differences, for a greater good and a greater cause. And I didn't necessarily seek out this project, but it's definitely, there are such similarities, and our characters, Aubrey is the antagonist, and it's definitely a different world, and this is a much more grounded, more world where Jane can become more vulnerable than, the other characters and things. But I'm happy and hopeful that the young girls who watched that show will still be inspired to continue on and grow up and be excited for this show too. So it's about women and men and everyone coming together to overcome differences.
Hunter, what about you? Was there any role that prepared you for this?
No, I haven't really. I've done like everything pretty much present day, and everyone wants me to be like a stoner or a jock or something. And so that's why, honestly, that's exactly why I was so excited to get the script, and I loved the writing, but I was mostly excited to just be in the 70s, man.
I think you're selling short your role as an incredible husband. I think that, no, honestly, I think that like playing opposite you, so much of
my off-screen role as a husband.
Your off-screen role as a husband, yeah. Like I think
a movie called The Husband. It was great.
I don't remember it.
You have such incredible interpersonal skills that like when we would do scenes that were about just like, communicating in the boy-girl way, I was like, yeah, he's had this conversation before. Sure, yeah.
Well, Patty is essentially my wife. So,
this is
true. They're very similar people, so I've had some experience with that.
Shout out, Catherine.
I think we have one more question. Who's got?
Hi, everyone. You guys are obviously champions for women everywhere, and I really appreciate the message your new show has. What would you say to someone who claimed not to be a feminist because they kind of don't understand the meaning of the word or feel like it's now a bastardization of what the word feminism means, which is equality?
If you're not a sexist, you can be a feminist.
Yeah, I think we need to take back the word feminism. I've gotten that question a couple times, like, are you comfortable calling yourself a feminist? I know it has some negative connotations, and I'm like, why? Like, for me, feminism just means a community of people fighting for and striving for equality, and there should be no negative connotations with that. And I think it can be something that people also define for themselves, but I don't understand what in any of the definition of feminism can be a negative thing. Like, feminism does not mean down with men. It means let's collaborate with men. Let's be equals. Let's work together. So if you have a friend who's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll take clapping. No, but, just like talk to people. And that's the thing, if you have a friend who's like, I don't feel comfortable with it, talk to them about it. That is the biggest thing I learned from this show. There is power in communication and community and knowing that you are not the only person who feels that way.
As a male feminist, I would say I'm good with down with men, though. We've had our time. We've had our time, guys.
You're a meminist.
I'd say, like, in terms of that negative connotation, yeah, I've heard of, I'm not going to drop names, but there's been plenty of high-profile women who have said recently that they don't consider themselves feminists because I love men. Right, it has nothing to do with that.
I love.
And so they're actually perpetuating that negative stereotype. Unfortunately, it's the wrong definition. But then I hear that there's younger women who, just like younger people in general, who may not want to have that any kind of labels, whether it's gender or sexuality or whether it's feminist or whatever. I say this, like, forget it. You don't have to talk, just walk the walk. If you're down for equality, because we don't have to get into what you want to call yourself. Call yourself whatever you want. But if you are down for equality of the sexes and for women rising up and acquiring, getting and maintaining the rights that we deserve, cool. You call yourself whatever the hell you want.
And
Vote
it's
Bryant.
not so serious. It's like this show, by the way, definitely a feminist show, and also like, it's not like, and I've seen it now, it's not like heavy. Like it's, feminism is light and funny and sexy as hell. And
yeah, I mean, the sexual revolution was also like a huge part of feminism, taking control of your own sexuality. Like it doesn't have to be just bra burning. If you want to burn your bras, that's fine, I understand. But like it doesn't have to be that. It can be light and fun and just talking to people and finding strength together and having joy. It's about the pursuit of equal opportunities for the happiness of all. Yes.
All right.
I think there are a few presidential candidates on this stage.
God, no,
That's what I think.
I'm smart enough
You
to
were
know it's a
starting the
terrible job.
revolution. You were like.
So Good Girls Revolt premieres October 28th on Amazon. I could have this conversation, or I'll let you guys have this conversation all day. It's going to be the best of the day. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Of
That
course.
was awesome.